So Games Workshop just released Warhammer 40k 10.5 edition, and sadly, it is a huge disaster. See, not content to release a new version of Warhammer 40k every 3 years, Games Workshop have issued out a new 0.5 version of the game in the form of this Pariah Nexus mission deck. And while on the face of it, it looks pretty innocuous, unfortunately there is a dark secret to this box that must be expunged, or else 40k is in a lot of trouble going forward. And here's why. So for the last year, we've been playing with the Leviathan mission deck. This came out at the launch of 40k 10th edition, and this mission deck is the core of Warhammer 40k now. It's more important than any codex or errata or rogue intern statement. Hell, it's arguably more important than the goddamn core rulebook. And while it was first thought that this mission deck here would be for competitive players only, it's not. Most people actually play with this because it governs the real meat of how the game is, well, actually played. Inside this box are objectives of the players in a game of Warhammer, details of how models should be deployed, and of course, special mission rules for every single scenario, alongside a tiny, very destroyable by accident pamphlet detailing how you should actually play Warhammer. Turns out we don't need a rulebook, just this. I mean, you'd think it'd be easy to get this content into this fucking massive tome that costs way too much, but apparently that was too hard. Now, this is the sort of stuff that used to just be in the rulebook. A lot of traditional war games still do this, and whenever you wanted to play a game, you'd simply roll a die and randomize which scenario to play. And then you'd get some close, tight, competitive games where skill determined who was the better player. Okay, when it comes to Warhammer, that's not quite true. Usually it was a bloody deathmatch of who can kill the other player first. I always brought a knife, so I usually won. But Games Workshop, to their credit, have sought to change that. And so the default way of playing the game has now changed to the mission deck system in 10th. And it works pretty simply. You get a primary mission alongside your opponent, and then you can choose to draw secondary tactical missions every turn that you have to achieve in order to win. Or simply use fixed secondary missions that are the same across the entire battle if you're totally square and don't like fun. And I will be honest, when this format was first announced, I was extremely suspicious. I usually don't like these competitive formats. They hurt my brain. I'm still getting over bird flu from 2010, never mind COVID. I can't think very well is my point, and competitive missions are a lot to consider. When I play Warhammer, I want fluffy narrative scenarios about purging Xenos or overthrowing the Imperium, not a game decided on whether or not I have objective control 2 or 1, or if this model was able to stand in this circle for long enough. Games won on technicalities aren't super fun or exciting to me. And how could anyone look forward to another additional purchase for Warhammer? Because of course, these mission decks are sold separately. How convenient for Games Workshop. Trust them to figure out a way to raise the barrier to entry for Warhammer from just needing a rulebook, codex, paints, clippers, and $500 army. Now you have to buy a deck of special rule cards to play as well. Finally, ensuring that every new Warhammer player represents the death of a small rainforest. Not to mention that the main strength of Warhammer 40k is that there's lots of other people at your local store who can play it. You can go anywhere and just play a game of Warhammer. That's not true of most other war games, like Gates of Antares. Although in the case of that game, you can't go anywhere and play it. But Games Workshop adding in another additional purchase that's needed to play the default game of Warhammer just totally ruins that strength. When half your player base have a deck of cards that they play with and the other don't, it kind of kills the ability to walk into any local game store and lose a game of Warhammer. And bear in mind that most casual players only play a game of 40k every few months, if that. For those kind of players, it's really hard to keep up to date with these things. Ultimately, this mission deck has a lot of room to be extremely anti-consumer. So suffice to say, I was prepared to hate this thing. I was very suspicious, very cynical, very discourse minis. But to my shame, I started to play with it and I got one over. I have to admit it. I really like this whole mission deck thing. The deployments in Leviathan were all fine. The mission special rules were okay, although my favorite is Chilling Rain, i.e. no fucking special rule. But the thing that really made Leviathan stand out, that made it all worthwhile, tactical objectives. I mean, you need a deck of cards to do this, but it creates absolutely fantastic gameplay. Every turn, you're drawing objectives from your deck and trying to achieve them on that turn, never knowing what's going to come next. This is a similar system to games like the Batman Miniatures game, which arguably does do this better, but it's still a great addition to 40k, and it helps it stand out amongst other war games, finally giving it a little bit of an identity, beyond just, you know, you go, I go, oh god, that's awful. And this has led me to enjoy 40k 10th edition much more than any other 40k version from Games Workshop in the last like 5 years at least. And even better, you can still play the old school version of Warhammer. You can choose 2 fixed objectives at the beginning of the game and just go for them. But frankly, if you do that, you're a square. Tactical objectives are just tons more fun, so play with those. So, Leviathan, tactical objectives, a genuinely good product, worth some of the downsides. But then, this week, the 10.5 edition of Warhammer was dropped, and the updated new version of the Leviathan mission deck came out, and things got really, really bad. As bad as an actual pirate from the year 1692 raiding your house. Luckily, that doesn't happen anymore. Oh no! Yahar! That's right, me hearties. Pirates are here. So check out Port Royal by Firelock Games. It's currently blowing up on Kickstarter and drawing more investors than the East India Company. Yahar! This is an awesome looking skirmish war game where you'll command a scurvy crew of pirates, privateers, French, or British as you fight over the wreckage of a post-earthquake Jamaica during the Age of Sail. Yes, that is the Pirates of the Caribbean times, back when there were pirates on the Caribbean and not just high-profile tax dodgers. The game is rules light, super accessible, and extremely customizable. You will command a crew of around 12 miniature men, but watch out, they can do a mutiny, so keep your guns close. This is a modern Mordheim, but improved. You'll fight other desperate crews in urban and jungle environments and do battle over loot in campaign or single match play games. Every conflict is intense because you'll take actions with your crew and then your opponents can take reactions in return, leading to constant action and little downtime in battles. Plus, for all the sad sacks without their very own merry crew to ride with, there is a solo mode with a fully simulated AI opponent. This can be played as part of a single one-off game or as part of a fully soloable and cooperative campaign. That's right, you don't need friends, just a crew of 12 little miniature men, 3d10, and all the yahar you can muster. Back it on Kickstarter now. It's only $79 or £63 for the full core box, and that comes with the rulebook, hard plastic customizable miniatures, terrain, a mat, dice, and PDFs of all the books. Check out the link in the description below. Go support an awesome company, and thanks to Firelock Games for sponsoring today's video and making it worth buying a pirate outfit finally. Yahar! Okay, I think they're gone. That was close. So I'm just gonna come out and say it. This new mission deck, Pariah Nexus, is a scam. I can't think of any other way to describe it. The Pariah Nexus update to these mission decks is everything that I was worried that Leviathan would be. See, Pariah Nexus is linked inextricably with the Warhammer season model. This is the business model that has gone so ruinously that Games Workshop barely dare to mention it anymore, and for good reason. It basically represents a series of cyclical, cynical, mandatory purchases by design. There's no other purpose to it. It's literally named after an annual meteorological event that never changes. You have no say in and occurs repeatedly without input. Who thought that was a good idea? And honestly, I kind of thought that they'd just stop doing the whole seasons thing because, I mean, they announced seasons a few years back, pretty half-heartedly released a book or two, and then they just shut up about it because, let's be real, Games Workshop already have so much content releasing every single week that they don't even have the space to pretend that they're releasing anything else on top of that. And hell, 40k only has like 3 years between editions. That's not a lot of space for seasons, especially not for a war game where building and painting models can take the better part of a year. I mean, just how quick a turnaround can we really get in Warhammer? But I was wrong. The Pariah Nexus mission deck update is the distillation of the Warhammer season model into 40k writ large. Seasons are back, baby, in a really big way, and I couldn't be more disappointed. So if you're anything like me, you might have expected that the Pariah Nexus mission deck is a bunch of new missions, some extra mission rules, and new deployments for the game. You, like me, might have gone even further and thought that we might possibly be able to mix the cards from the Pariah Nexus mission deck into the Leviathan deck and have a wacky, fun game of Warhammer 40k with even more varied tactical objectives, new deployments, and crazy mission rules. Maybe even another version of Chilling Rain. You, like me, might have thought the Pariah Nexus was $35 of brand spanking new content. More cards to add to your library of mission rules, primary objectives, secondary objectives, and deployments. How exciting would that be? Well, if you were like me, you were wrong, which is weird because you're usually right about these things, which is why you're subscribed to this channel, right? But seriously, I was very surprised to learn that there's actually very little new content in Pariah Nexus. I mean, look, the blurb for the Pariah Nexus mission deck reads the following: 6 mission deployment cards, 9 primary mission cards, 10 mission rules, 18 defender and attacker mission cards, and 8 secret objectives. But of those 6 deployment cards advertised, 3 are identical to what already came in the Leviathan deck. 2 have been changed very slightly, and only 1 is new. Of the 9 primary mission cards, 5 are the same as Leviathan with minimal changes, and then 4 are new. Of the 18 secondary missions, 12 missions are identical to Leviathan or have had a slight update. The only truly new content in here are secret objectives, which replace the Gambit system from Leviathan, and that system never got used, so this update is good. That's genuinely an upgrade. So too is the updated templates on these cards. They're much more readable. Definitely, you know, a star for that one. And the new mission rules are all new too, which is great, but I kind of expected everything to be like that. Instead, nearly 40 cards in here are functionally identical to Leviathan. That's a hugely missed opportunity for Games Workshop to create totally new content, to add more variety to play, to enhance the game. I expected all new tactical objectives in here, new deployments, new mission rules, similar to how a game like Star Wars Shatterpoint or Star Wars Legion release mission decks to add more variety to games. Instead, Games Workshop have just sold a patch that you now have to buy if you want to remain relevant and continue to play Warhammer. Because this deck is mostly just an updated version of the Leviathan cards, and it's now the new way to play Warhammer. That means it's not an optional buy. It is the replacement for Leviathan, not the addition to Leviathan. This renders the old missions irrelevant. You can pretty much throw Leviathan away now. It serves no purpose anymore. And frankly, this is my problem with a lot of Warhammer content. Games Workshop often force players to buy stuff if they want to remain relevant and play games with their friends and with strangers who are really just potential friends or potential enemies or registered sex offenders. You really don't know anymore. Rather than simply selling more options, more ways to play, and trying to entice players with shinies, presenting them carrots and saying, "Come and have a little bite, childa." That would be the sex offenders. Games Workshop instead hit us with sticks. They insist, buy, buy, buy. But this is the season model, right? This is the only way to do that. And that was always my problem with the season model. And now I'm worried if seasons are back from the grave, is there going to be another one of these mandatory mission decks next year? A deck that barely adds anything new but a patch and errata. One that will prompt me to then throw away Pariah Nexus if I want to keep playing the game. And then, what, a new edition of Warhammer 40k with a new mission deck? And is that it? Every single year from now on? I mean, I just want to enjoy the game. Let me enjoy the game, GW. Stop making your products disposable. And they're expensive too. This new mission deck costs $35, £20. This just feels like a tax. But it didn't have to be. It could have been really fun. It could have been a really great purchase, one that I would have actually recommended. But the entire design goal of this mission deck was mistaken from the start from the very concept, and it's because of the business model of seasons worming its way into the game again. And now my nightmare that these mission decks would stratify players is true. Casuals are now going to turn up the local game stores to play a game and be confused by a whole new deck of cards being slapped out on the table, one that has totally replaced any deck that they have. And I'm not sure if the addition of secret objectives or the focus on battle line units in the mission rules and some of the updated deployments in the deck are even worth it. I mean, some of it sounds fun, but I just keep circling back to the fact that this purchase should have been optional, not mandatory. It should have been entirely new. Pariah Nexus, the mission deck system, it was a cool idea. Ruined. Games Workshop just can't imagine a system that isn't designed to exploit the player base, that isn't designed to hurt consumers, even if it damages the casual market and accessibility for the game. And I think that sucks. And if you think that sucks, why not check out some of my reviews of other war games like Blood and Plunder, Prohammer, Malifaux, and more. You can check them out on patreon.com/discourse miniatures, or even check out an entirely free game over there, Blood Black, if you're a fan of supernatural combat. And a huge thanks to my existing patrons, especially CryptoKev, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye bye.